Opening of East Germany's border, with AFN reports from Berlin and from the East German border with the 3rd of the 11th Cavalry Regiment. But first, to put this in perspective for us here in Europe, the wall has been a major obstacle in NATO-Warsaw Pact relations since it was built back in August of 1961. It was built to then stop the flow of refugees into the West, and for the past 28 years has stood as a cold and hard reminder of the differences between Western ideologies and Eastern ideologies. Well, the ball started rolling in the opening of the borders earlier this week, when first the government and then the Politburo resigned due to mass protests and a huge exodus of unhappy East Germans. Then last night around 7 o'clock, Politburo member Günter Schabowski went on national television from East Berlin to announce that East Germany had opened her borders. Moments later, hundreds of thousands of Berliners, both East and West, took to the streets. AFN Berlin also took to the streets with their cameras to catch the celebration on tape. As Berliners left East Berlin, champagne and tears flowed as family members, loved ones, and total strangers embraced at the thought of a wide-open city. The celebration continued through the night. Many East Berliners walked, drove, or just climbed over the wall to stay. Others came over just to see what the western side of their city looked like. All of this as a result of 28 years of separation for one common people. Upon their announcement, the government added that although the borders were open, visas were needed by East Germans to cross over. But the visa offices in the East became packed with people. So until order could be restored, the borders were left wide open. One of the people the AFN Berlin crew ran into was an American who was in East Germany at the time of the announcement. He says he was one of the first people to cross back into the West.
I was over in East Berlin today. My father and I came back around 11:30 tonight, and we were actually the first car that went through Checkpoint Charlie when the first East Germans started to come over. And we got the first pictures, to the best of my knowledge, from within Checkpoint Charlie itself, of people coming through the gangway. I don't know what you call it in English anymore. I've been here too long. And it was pretty intense. And then we went over into West Berlin. We were with the crowd there a while. We went back into East Berlin. We took pictures of the crowd there on the other side of the wall again. Then we came back into the West. Then I've been up here. I went through the Brandenburger Tor and down the street there a bit, and I've come back now. It's pretty amazing stuff. There was one guy who came up here, and he got to the top, and he said, "This is unbelievable. I have a sister here in the West. I haven't seen her for 12 years. Unbelievable." And then he got down on this side of the wall. Amazing stuff. I mean, this is where history is being made.
This history was made around Checkpoint Charlie. This morning, the morning after, the party was still on as Berliners woke to see that their dream really had come true. The entertainment district had been drunk dry of all its beer, and people began calling friends and relatives that they hadn't spoken to in years. This overloaded the Bundespost lines, and if you were listening to AFN Berlin live on the radio this morning, you may have noticed that it also cut off that programming. Our camera crews were out on the streets all night, and with the rising sun, asked some people what they thought of the revelation from the night before.
This is fantastic. I never thought when I was an old man I might come back to Berlin and drive through the Brandenburg Gate, and it looks like I might be able to do it before I even leave on my tour.
I feel that this is truly amazing what's happening. It's unbelievable, and it's a step in the right direction for freedom for Germany.
Well, I heard this morning on the radio that the wall has fallen down this night, and I couldn't stand the temptation to walk on the wall now, because when this wall falls down, I will be the first one who gets a piece of it for my home. I would take it as a souvenir. This wall has to fall down, and I think it's very, very nice of the East German troop that they made a platform on the wall so we can walk there. I think we could use it as a stage or so after the wall has fallen down already.
Well, Berlin wasn't the only place making history today. The West German border with East Germany stretches for thousands of miles. And early this morning, AFN News reporter Sergeant Kelly Rowe, along with Bob Kramer, headed for Bad Hersfeld, which is 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment territory. And they also went to a major road crossing from the east. Now, Sergeant Rowe, you've been up for many hours. Must have been pretty exciting this morning.
Yes, it was. As soon as we got there, we noticed that cars were already starting to come in from the east. And we immediately started setting up our cameras and recording some of the history being made at the time.
Now, you got an escort from the 564th MP Company take you right up to the border. You shot some video. Let's take a look at what that tape looks like.
Okay. Like I said, this is right here, is right after we got there. We set up, and these are the cars that we first recorded coming across the border. There were no delays. The West German police just asked them if they were going to be staying or returning back to the east, and they were on their way.
Now, were these people really nervous coming to the border?
Yes, they were. They didn't know what to expect. Here's a young kid here going to give us a smile. This family right here said they were going to stay in the West. They've got everything packed up in the back of their car, and well, as you'll see, a trailer here at the end of the car. That's everything they own right there.
They just took it with them. What's going on here now?
This is a group of people that pulled up to the border. This lady here, she's giving a hug to a man that just happened to be there at the time. She didn't know him, and as you can see, the tears are, she's crying and very happy to be here. Another group of people that said they were going to be staying in the West.
Well, Sergeant Rowe, I know you've been up for about 40 hours or so straight. Thanks for coming in. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, the AFN News team in Bad Hersfeld this morning says they observed not a flood of refugees, but a steady trickle. West German border police say about 650 crossed at that particular checkpoint this morning. Of the 650, 124 indicated that they intended to stay in the West. The rest, like the man we're about to see, were just trying out their new freedom.
I want to look and want to go shopping, and you know, I can't believe it. Tonight I've heard it on the radio.
Among those who came to the West this morning with the decision to stay was this man, a carpenter, and his daughter, wife, and son. He told AFN News that he applied to leave more than 1.5 years ago. He never received permission to go, and he just couldn't wait any longer. This man is hoping to find work as a butcher in the West. He and his wife have relatives in Hanover, and for his wife, freedom is everything.
We want to be free, free to think, free to talk, free to go where we want. We want to start a new life from the bottom up. We don't have much anyway.
Well, 5th Corps' 3rd Squadron, 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, spends every hour of every day along the West German border with East Germany, manning outposts and observing East German activities along a fortified stretch of barbed wire, landmines, and armed guards. Now, unexpectedly, these soldiers found themselves observing history. AFN talked with some of them this morning.
Well, I like it. It's really great. 10 years from now, my kids will probably be reading it in the, history books and say, "Dad, weren't you there?" I say, "Yeah, I was there."
Well, I think, like the other guy says, it's a historical event that I appreciate in the long run myself. It's something that you'll never forget.
It's really exciting today. Like I said, I've only been here a month, and I'm glad to be here in time. I got here just in time just to be in part of history, and I've watched several times. I pull guard and I watch cross border. The first couple of weeks I watched cross, no activity. And then all of a sudden, bam, one day you got 500 people coming across the border. It just feels good.
5th Corps Public Affairs says the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment has not been given any special orders. It's business as usual. The West German Border Police are handling all contact with the arriving refugees. AFN talked with Lieutenant Thomas Dorame of Invader Troop, 3rd Squadron, 11th ACR, as he came off Border Patrol this morning.
We went on a border patrol this morning, checking out several checkpoints along the East German interzonal border. Activity we monitored was basically normal. We didn't see that much of a decrease activity and no more of an increase activity than normal. We observed several border troops and towers. The sector looked pretty normal this morning. No unusual activity from our point of view.
It's also business as usual for any U.S. military personnel who may be in the border area. The 1-kilometer restriction is still in effect until further notice. And AFN Berlin also reports that military tours on this Veterans Day weekend around the city and to the east are continuing as scheduled. Also, Checkpoint Charlie is processing U.S. military personnel just as usual. Well, the U.S. military in Europe has been asked to lend a hand in housing the expected increase in East Germans that will now be heading west with the dropping of border restrictions. USA Public Affairs Director Colonel Scott Duncan told AFN News this morning that 200 East Germans are being housed temporarily in a 750-bed wartime contingency hospital in southern Germany. USAF has also identified an old French caserne near Bitburg Air Base and another contingency hospital near Zweibrücken Air Base. They'll also be open to those immigrants if the Rhineland-Pfalz government asks them for more assistance. The U.S. Army Europe is still looking for facilities for the immigrants. Well, of course, this new revelation was a welcome